Did you know that FromSoftware, the developer of smash hit Elden Ring as well as the Souls series at large, has developed 37 games exclusively for the PlayStation ecosystem? With this, an important question is raised. Why did Sony never purchase FromSoftware, and what the hey-hoo is going on with Bloodborne, an IP that PlayStation owns but hasn't done anything with to this very day? All of this and more here on Int Media, fellas. Hello friends, Hansen here, and welcome back to Int Media, my video games analysis YouTube channel. I, like presumably many others out there, am amped for the upcoming Shadow of the Erdtree expansion for Elden Ring, which is probably one of my favorite games of the last decade, definitely top 3. I find Elden Ring to be such an enjoyable and fascinating game to play, primarily of the way it was designed, its levels, systems, and enemies all included here. This has naturally made me curious about FromSoftware, the masterminds behind not just Elden Ring, but the entire Souls series, which began with Demon Souls back in 2009. This was followed up by the Dark Souls franchise and one-offs such as Bloodborne, Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, and of course Elden Ring, which is sure to be their next big franchise with many more games to come. I wanted to take the time and look more deeply at FromSoftware, and because of the goals in my channel, I wanted to take the time and analyze their very long and interesting history with PlayStation. PlayStation serves as the platform which began the entire Souls-like genre as we know it, and also has what many people to be considered the best Souls-like game in the entire genre, Bloodborne. Both Demon Souls and Bloodborne are completely locked to the PlayStation ecosystem to this very day, despite From's meteoric success and PlayStation's continued successful endeavors into the PC landscape. The Last of Us Part 1's launch aside, of course. On top of this, Sony owns 14.09% of FromSoftware as of today, and in this era of mergers and acquisitions, common sense would tell us that FromSoftware will be a prime acquisition target for Sony, especially after the success of Bloodborne and the Demon Souls remake. So with that, fellas, let's take the plunge. Let's take an all-encompassing gaze at PlayStation and FromSoftware's long history and analyze where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going. If that sounds good to you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to Int Media if you want to see more videos similar to this one. All in all, fellas, here's the breakdown. Since FromSoftware was founded on 1 November 1986, they have made a total of 37 PlayStation exclusive games. This comes out to 10 PS1 games, 19 PS2 games, 4 PSP games, 3 PS3 games, and 2 PS4 games. Those PS4 games are Bloodborne and a much less discussed title, Déraciné, a PSVR exclusive that was actually directed by Miyazaki, the longtime director of the Dark Souls franchise and the creator of the Souls-like genre as we know it, believe it or not. Much of these earlier PS1 and PS2 generation games were defined by From's first two notable franchises, King's Field and Armored Core. Armored Core, as I'm sure you all know, is a currently ongoing franchise and had a game released just last year in late 2023. King's Field, which was actually FromSoftware's first game ever, was a first-person action-adventure game that is considered to be a progenitor of the Souls-like series, given that some of the hallmarks of the Souls-like games, such as a dark fantasy setting and a stamina bar that depletes and refills when the player does actions, are present within King's Field. Throughout the PS1 and 2 generations, both King's Field and Armored Core were console exclusives, and apart from these two franchises, From released 16 other random games for PlayStation consoles. Heading into the PlayStation 3 generation, the King's Field franchise was effectively ended with 2001's King's Field 4. FromSoftware was able to take the Armored Core series multi-platform, and this was recognized with the release of Armored Core 4 on the PS3 and Xbox 360. But it was within this generation, the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 generation, ladies and gentlemen, where FromSoftware was catapulted into mainstream success, and it did so with the creation of a whole new genre of video game, the Souls-like. In 2009, the god himself, Miyazaki, released Demon's Souls exclusively on the PlayStation 3, and the reception, while positive, was also shrouded with a bit of confusion, stamped with the revelation that a new subgenre of action-adventure game was created. Demon's Souls was a wacky first outing, to be sure, but what was significant about the game was the fact that it introduced many of the hallmarks that the Souls games are still known for to this day. Many people weren't sure what to make of it, and in fact, a good number of people thought the game sucked. Main pundits at IGN didn't even review the game when it was released in the West, hiring a freelancer instead to accomplish the task. In fact, this game wasn't even intended to release in the US. It was picked up by Atlas, who published it for Western audiences, and it sold just shy of 1 million units. After this came Dark Souls 1 and 2, and this is where the series became a mainstream success and became known as a difficult yet excellent franchise within gaming. After Dark Souls 2 is where things get a little crazy, and FromSoftware made their second most critically acclaimed Souls-like to date, and also, this was a PlayStation exclusive, further pushing the envelope of FromSoftware's rich history with the PlayStation brand. And this was of course King Bloodborne, internally known as Project Beast at FromSoftware. This game was leaked onto the internet years before it launched on the PS4. These leaks included a gameplay trailer as well as many screenshots. At first, many enthusiasts thought that Bloodborne was some sort of successor to Demon's Souls, given that it was evident that it was another PlayStation exclusive FromSoftware Souls-like game. However, the champion of our Lord God, Hidetaka Miyazaki, quickly put these rumors to rest by stating that Bloodborne is in no way, shape, and form connected to Demon's Souls, given that Sony Computer Entertainment specifically requested a new IP for the console. But Demon's Souls was still an influence on the design of Bloodborne. Miyazaki conceded that Bloodborne, quote, carries the DNA of Demon's Souls in its very specific level design, end quote. Bloodborne was announced at E3 2014, where a trailer was shown, and from there, the hype machine ramped up to full gear. Galaxy-brained gamers at that time were most excited for how Bloodborne diverged from Dark Souls' gameplay in a few important ways, while seeming to retain the heftiness, difficulty, and iconoclasm that the series was known for. Players were excited for faster combat, the rally system, which allowed you to regain your health by attacking enemies shortly after you lost your health. The ability to use firearms to parry your opponent, the fact that every weapon had two forms of functionality that could be switched at a moment's notice while performing attack combos in-game, and of course, the gothic/Lovecraftian horror themes that the game was pursuing. Yet they were still excited for the great lore, boss fights, intense combat that these games were lauded for. Bloodborne got a big old chunky thumbs up from basically everyone, Sony and critics alike. Bloodborne sits at a mighty 92 on Metacritic, the second highest Souls-like from FromSoftware, behind the Lord Elden Ring. But a game's legacy is often defined by critical and commercial success, and when it comes to commercial success, Bloodborne also succeeded. On the sales side of the house, Sony commented that the game's sales exceeded expectations, which surprised them according to an article from GameSpot. But the story doesn't stop here, my dudes. Bloodborne: The Old Hunters, an expansion that served as downloadable content, was launched in late 2015. This too received critical and commercial success, and also within this expansion lies the Orphan of Kaz. I'm not joking when I say this boss killed me over 100 times before I eventually defeated him. That's not a joke, I was emasculated by this fucking heathen. Yet despite many tough areas and boss fights, people consider the Old Hunters to be even better than the base game of Bloodborne, highlighting its success as an expansion that continues FromSoftware's legacy of making really great downloadable expansion packs. As we begin to wrap up breaking down PlayStation's collaborations with FromSoftware and their rich history together, I wanted to take the time to shout out Déraciné, the virtual reality game that FromSoftware developed exclusively for the PSVR 1, and one that was co-directed by none other than Mr. Miyazaki himself. It seems as though Déraciné has been completely forgotten about, and I really do mean that. I had literally no idea that this game existed until I was scouring Wikipedia as I typically do and happened to stumble across it. In the game, you play as a fairy or something, and according to Miyazaki, he wanted to explore the different themes between, quote, existence versus non-existence, end quote. And he felt like he could really capture this theme within the realm of virtual reality. The game received mixed reviews and we have no idea how it sold, but if I were a betting man, I would go to Vegas and put it all on red. This game was a fucking bomb. I'm basing this off the fact that the PSVR did not sell very well to begin with, and you needed that in order to play this game. And on top of this game has absolutely no word of mouth, and for a studio as renowned as FromSoftware, that's a pretty big concern. So fellas, in conclusion, let's address the obvious elephant in the room. Will Sony acquire FromSoftware? I'll begin by saying that I think that's a perfectly reasonable question to ask, given their extensive collaboration, potentially more than any video game studio in the history of the PlayStation brand. PlayStation and FromSoftware have a rich history indeed, and their relationship led to the creation of one of the video games that is on the list of video games that are considered to be the greatest of all time in Bloodborne, alongside the flat-out creation of a new genre in the video game industry with the Souls-like, which is a monumentous achievement in and of itself. But still, I haven't answered the question, will Sony purchase FromSoftware? If I had to guess and make an assessment, I would say no. The reason for this is that in August 2022, 5 months after the launch of Elden Ring, Sony purchased 14% of FromSoftware. The other shareholders in From include Katakawa, who owns the company by holding 69.66% of FromSoftware. The rest of the company is owned, very unfortunately, by Six Joy Hong Kong, who is a subsidiary of Tencent, who is, in essence, a subsidiary of the Chinese Communist Party. I think that if Sony were to try to make some sort of move to purchase FromSoftware prior to the launch of Elden Ring, they might have had a chance, but given the success of that game, which effectively launched the Souls-like genre of video game into the mainstream, combined with the fact that it seems that From wants to maintain some level of independence, as evidenced by their purchase of the rights to the Elden Ring IP from Bandai Namco, it seems that FromSoftware is effectively the one that got away. As always with mergers and acquisitions, never say never. We never know what can happen with these sorts of things. Early 2022, which was defined by Xbox's purchase of Activision Blizzard King, and by Sony's purchase of Bungie, is all of the evidence that we need in order to know that the nature of mergers and acquisitions is highly unpredictable. Time will only tell, but I really don't think that Sony will make a move for FromSoftware anytime soon. Finally, I want to speculate on the future of the Bloodborne IP, as it is so important to so many people out there. I fully anticipate that Bloodborne is going to be remade or remastered for whatever sort of next iteration of the PlayStation console comes out next. Whether that's the PS5 Pro or the PlayStation 6, I really think that it's coming soon. Sony has to know how important Bloodborne is and the kind of audience a new Souls-like game coming from PlayStation. They have to understand how well that would do on their console, and it would probably move a lot of units in full transparency. If I had to guess, I would say that Bluepoint would be responsible for remastering or remaking this game, just like they did when they handled the Demon's Souls remake back in 2020. But aside from remakes and remasters, I really think it would be cool if we got a new Bloodborne game. Whether this is from FromSoftware or Bluepoint, honestly, I think they've earned it at this point, and I think they have enough familiarity with the Souls-like genre with the Demon's Souls remake to really take a good stab at this. But only time will tell, my friends, but please know that I really do think that we have not seen the last of Bloodborne, and it is going to be remade or remastered at the very least sometime soon. Anyways, fellas, that is all I've got for you today. It's been fun to explore the rich history between PlayStation and FromSoftware, and I hope that you all are staying safe out there and doing well. This is Hansen with Ent Media, out.